All right, Dhanavat Pranam, everybody. We have part two with Sajjan Prabhuji. We will continue an interesting discussion that we started a couple of weeks ago, and I guess we'll just jump straight into it. And so last time we left off talking about Tripurari Maharaj's ashram in Noe Valley, which was his first ashram since he left ISKCON, and you were involved in that.
Mhm.
And you mentioned to me before we started this recording that you pretty much said everything that you can remember from that time. But one thing that we didn't really talk about, just a brief question about that time, was what was the program like the temple program? Like, was it very similar to ISKCON, or was Maharaj doing things differently already, or what was it actually like day to day and Sunday feast and all that?
Yes, I mean, what I recall is that it was very similar to ISKCON in terms of there being. I remember when I expressed a little apprehension initially that, as you may recall, last time I mentioned that he asked me to be like a kind of like an assistant, temporary temple manager, assisting Shyamasundar Prabhu. Um, and I said, but I don't have any prior experience of doing that specifically, of being like a temple manager or something. He said, don't worry. He said, don't be worried. Just be there just to see that everything is going on in the usual way. And just give class in the morning class, and attend the morning program, and you could lead some kirtans and that type, simple things, just very simple things that I was able to do well, thankfully. So so yes, it was the program was very similar. At that time, there was Mangalartik, and then there was Japa time, and then the class, Srimad Bhagavatam class, I believe, um, uh, as I recall, which was a little different from the way the morning class at the San Jose Temple with Sudhir Krishna Maharaj. He would literally put on a tape recording of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and then pause it intermittently and comment upon things that Srila Sridhar Maharaj was saying. Well, that was not done, at least when I was, part of the Noe Valley Temple. It seemed to be like a regular class procedure that I can recall. And then there was greeting of the deities, and nice chanting, and I would just kind of like be available. I would make myself available to speak with the devotees individually, whoever wished to do so. Yeah, things just kind of went on really nicely. Sometimes I would just go into the kitchen and help cut vegetables, like if that was needed, just whatever was needed. I'm here for that. That was my attitude at the time.
Nice, nice. And were you doing book distribution anymore at that point, or?
No, 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 no. Book distribution was only for the first 2 years, from 1970, early 77 until spring of 1979. And then I kind of requested, to be able to kind of do some other engagements, that because I was not like a really proficient, book distributor like that, like your Guru Maharaj was. I don't know too many devotees who were like, on his level of proficiency in that regard, but um, so I spoke to my temple authorities in the Manhattan Temple at the time, because where I was living in Connecticut was like a satellite branch of the big Manhattan Center. And so there was literally a meeting, was kind of called, and like the temple president at that time was Lakshmi Nrsimha Prabhu, Adikeshava Swami was there, and I believe Jayadvaita Swami of the Back to Godhead magazine staff, and perhaps a couple of other people. And there was some discussion, and it was arranged, very graciously, that I would begin on the Back to Godhead staff, as I mentioned to you last time, working with Jayadvaita Swami and Jagajivan Yamaraj, was Das was there at the time, and so many other. Dravida and Satyanarayan. I'm sure Grimraj would know all of these names like that, and others. And so, and I also, as I mentioned last time, I was able to join the Vaikuntha players. Um, Even though I didn't specifically request that, I was kind of interested, because of my background, which you know about. And so I was able to join the Vaikuntha players and work with Nanda Kishore Prabhu and Janava Mata, and of course, Lokamangala and other wonderful devotees in the theater troupe, very senior Prabhupada disciples, who Prabhupada personally saw their performances when he was in the world with us. And that was my first engagement as a pujari, was not like just like very part-time. I began just doing like the 4:30 program, and I believe I did that as well. I remember now, I did the 4:30 program at the Noe Valley Temple. You just kind of jogged my memory. I took care of Gaurada Madhava, by like waking them up in the afternoon after their afternoon nap, and bringing them a tray with like many different wonderful sweets, and like a fruit salad that I made myself. I remember I made like a special fruit salad with like either yogurt, dressing, or whipped cream or something to make it more, luxurious for them. And so the same thing I did at the beginning, and that's how I began at the Manhattan Temple, with that 4:30, wake up the deities and prepare their little snack, afternoon snack, and then do of course, the puja, the 10-minute Artik puja in both Manhattan originally, 1979, and also later in Noe Valley, in like 1989, 10 years later, like that. And then those, as I mentioned last time, I was fortunate to take care of the deities at the Rupanuga Bhajan Ashram in Vrindavan, also. But more, I woke them up in the morning as well, not just in the afternoon, but in the morning, like, 4:30, etc., like that. So yeah, it was a wonderful, very, very glorious engagement that I've always been, so grateful for. And I also worked in the restaurant in a number of temples. Manhattan, the Govinda's restaurant in the basement, very famous, like all over the city. I worked there also. So I was doing like 4 engagements, like at one time. After completing the work that I could do as a book distributor or magazine, BTG, Back to Godhead magazine distributor, etc., like that, for 2 years. And and then I don't know if oh gosh, I forgot everything I said last time, but like, did I mention I had my own theater company beginning in St. Louis? So yes, that was it was a wonderful engagement. That's when I first met Markandeya, was when I was traded to see, because I was not doing book distribution anymore. But the Manhattan Temple leaders, they felt they would really, they could probably use a few, other good book distributors, like, so that I got traded like a baseball player to St. Louis. No, it was great. I loved it. I was traded to St. Louis for a couple of book distributors, senior Prabhupada disciples, who came from St. Louis, went to Manhattan, and myself and 2 other devotees went to St. Louis. And when I got there, like Markandeya, he was like just kind of like putting on a play whenever he could with a few other devotees there, from, because they were full-time book distributors, Markandeya and like that still at that time. And so when I got there, like again, there was a little meeting like of a few devotees in the temple president's office. Suradas was the temple president at that time. And Markandeya asked me, can like we were putting on a play, tomorrow night at the Sunday feast, every Sunday night, like they wanted to try to put on something, offer some kind of a devotional play. And so Markandeya said, can you act? And I went, can I act? Can I act? No, I can't act. So I did like that. And so he went, you're hired, you'll do great. And so that was so as time went on, gradually, they just I was kind of like made like the leader of the theater company there, because they wanted something more regular, that the book distributors didn't have to try to like attend to on their own, but they wanted something that they could provide to, the audience, the people who came to the Sunday feast every single week. So I was able to, take over that position, and I called the theater company Tilak, the Theater for Innumerable Laughs and Absolute Knowledge, Tilak, like that. And we had a chance to put on these plays that nobody had ever imagined was possible. Things like making, like doing a presentation. These were all short, like 15 to 20-minute skits. They were not like epics or anything like that, So somehow or other, again, as I mentioned last week, everything was done just by divine grace. I have no earthly idea how we were able to come up with like an original one-act play every Sunday night. That includes the writing, the rehearsing, getting the props and costumes and makeup together, and like all of it. It was like, later we couldn't imagine how it was possible, but this went on for 5 years, literally, in different locations. The Tilak Repertory Company started in St. Louis, then, there were plays done in Chicago later. And your Guru Maharaj, on one occasion when I was not present, because I wasn't always present in all of these locations. One time when Markandeya was there and trying to put on plays in Chicago, but I was not there, your Guru Maharaj was passing through, and Markandeya said, Maharaj, would you like to, be in our play for the Sunday feast? And so they kind of worked it out that they would do a different play that I wrote. Well, actually, I didn't even mention the first one. I wrote a play called Where No Materialistic Man Has Gone Before. And it was like all the Star Trek characters, and the Klingons represented like Mayavadis and atheists, and, the crew of the Enterprise was like devotees. And like Spock would be quoting verses, from the Bhagavad Gita, and like it was, and people like when like they just loved it. They really did. And we had pretty good audiences every Sunday. There must have been at least, I'd say, around 50 to like 75 people, like in St. Louis. It was and it's not, at that time was not a large temple. In Chicago, then we had like audiences of like a couple of hundred people every Sunday night, because there was also an Indian community there as well. And so I wrote another play, I think it was called Joe Rama, Private Eye Tinged with the Salve of Love of God. And it was like the main character was like Humphrey Bogart, like that. And so your Guru Maharaj graciously, he said, yeah, I'll do that role of the Humphrey Bogart character. Yeah, no, he said, but he said, I don't feel comfortable though that my name being Joe Rama, like one of the names of God there. So he said, so he changed it to like Sam Shloka, and he played that. Yes. So he actually like so graciously like became the star of one of those little one act skits that I wrote. And it was about like a microscope that some spies were trying to steal, because this microscope could like apparently could see like the soul. It was like it was so fine that it could see like the soul. And but it was like that was like the premise, the humorous premise like that. But then, as it turns out later on, the spoiler, like I don't know if you'll ever get to see them, but the spoiler is that no, only eyes of devotion can see that. It can't be seen by material eyes like that. Just because there's a microscope in a laboratory, that doesn't help like that. So anyway, yeah, it was he was, and then as I mentioned to you last time, I was able to be one of the editors and proofreaders of the Clarion Call magazine in Noe Valley. And then the very first issue of The Harmonist in Eugene, Oregon, like that. Not just the first issue, like that.
Did you go to Oregon, Eugene with Guru Maharaj? Oh, with Tripura Maharaj?
I didn't, well, I visited there. I visited from time to time. And yeah, I worked with him as much as I could because he was like, like outstanding association, to say the least. Yeah, I tried to just kind of stay connected, all through the years, beginning, as I mentioned last time, from around 1986 to 87, like that. I tried to like kind of, on one occasion when I was living in Santa Fe, he visited two of his well, actually one was his initiated disciple Yoga Maya Didi, who was married at the time to Hamsavatar Prabhu. He passed away since that time, but your Guru Maharaj came to visit Santa. It was something like, it was a different location. I forgot the name of the place. El Dorado, maybe El Dorado or something above Santa Fe in New Mexico. And he came in and gave a couple of programs at Yoga Maya and Hamsavatar's home. I drove, I just drove to El Dorado and like I attended those, and I was so happy to see him there as well. So yeah, no, I've always been. It's always meant so much to me to have like ongoing, living, very positive inspiration and association, like that was like so vital to me, like throughout the entire, from like, like mid 70s up until now. I can't emphasize that strongly enough. Can we derive a tremendous amount from books? Absolutely. And, beyond the books, it's the physical association of living, awakened masters and, great devotees has always been such a, I can't emphasize enough the value of that, as a component of actually kind of like an enduring factor. If there's one single uh, uh, principle, which would be the main one, the core one in one's, enduring, ongoing devotional life up until, up until the end, so to speak, of this body, mind, instrument. And Prabhupada himself also said this. He said, because he was asked that question, Prabhupada said, association. It's association. Excuse me. So I think I kind of like gave. I hope that wasn't too much information or
Not
something.
at all. No, no, this is
Oh,
good.
good, good.
Yes, no
Good.
problem. This flows really nicely, so I'm happy about that. I was wondering what happened after 87. You mentioned you stayed around my Guru Maharaj's mission around 87, and then what happened after that?
Okay. Um, so up until I stayed really kind of like regularly, I'm doing the best I can with language here, kind of like actively, visibly connected with the larger Gaudiya Vaishnava community, all the way up until like, I'd say 98, 99, early 99, well, late 98, something like that. So, I worked with Sudhir Goswami Maharaj, on the Guardian of Devotion Press books. And as I mentioned last time, the first five of Srila Narayan Maharaj's books, and the very first book of Srila Puri Maharaj that came out in the English language called The Heart of Krishna, and so many other books by whoever, any elder, senior godbrother, especially sannyasin godbrothers who kind of needed help doing a publication. It got to the point where they would just automatically come and approach me and ask me to help. And I was like ecstatic about the opportunity, the opportunity to do so. So I worked with Bhakti Sagar Maharaj. He used to be a Koyananda Maharaj, Sagar Maharaj. I worked on the Guru Maharaj's very first presentation of his Bhagavad Gita in English. The Hidden Treasure of the Absolute, something like the Hidden Treasure of the Absolute. And then the Brahma Samhita, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Brahma Samhita presentation I'd worked on with Sagar Maharaj. Then there used to be Bharati Maharaj, a very nice devotee, there was a book called Kirtan Manjusha, book of Kirtans of the Chaitanya Saraswat Math. So I got a chance to help with that. Giri Maharaj, Bhakti Kanan Giri Maharaj, wonderful, sincere devotee. He's in New Jersey now for a very long time. He asked me to assist him with a presentation of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book, The Life and Teachings of Sri Chaitanya, which I did. And as I mentioned to you, Jagat Guru Maharaj, Narasringa Maharaj, I worked with him on a book that he presented for Srila Prabhupada's talks on the Ramananda Samvad. There's a book like that I worked on. And wherever I went, I just worked, assisted, with literary work, publication work. Even when I lived in New Vrindavan for like 4 months, I was like an editor and proofreader for the Bridge Basi Spirit magazine, like that. So it was just like something which I just love to do. And that's another principle which I think would be helpful to mention, is that there are things which we kind of feel I should be doing, or that we may be asked to do by temple authorities or whomever. I don't know. I don't know what the system is these days with living in an ashram. I'm just not kind of like up on that.
Are there any ashrams anymore?
Okay, see, there we go. Okay, that's what I thought. So, but in the old days, it was like, a person just basically do whatever they were asked to do, or like instructed to do. But at some point, I had to kind of check in with myself and ask myself, just with all honesty and integrity, is this something that I can continue doing, like for the duration, for like day in, day out, year after year, until the body falls on the ground? And I thought, and at some point, I just had to just really be honest and go, yes, like I so much want. I can remember as a new bhakta, especially while Prabhupada was still alive, going out into, the parking lot or whatever, like somewhere in New England, and with the BTGs and going, yes, this is, I was very, very cold. It was like, because it was winter, and New England is not known for being very merciful in the winter. But I was thinking to myself, no, Srila Prabhupada, this is pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. I just want to do this because it's pleasing to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, and like this is what I am doing, you know. And that was great as long as it lasted. But then it's like, so I did that for 2 years, like I said, like not just like a weekend, but 2 full years. And then after that, I had to think to myself, oh my God, what would I love to do? What would I really love to do? Because if I'm doing what I love, then there's a better chance of really just kind of blending in a very kind of harmonious and natural and cooperative way. Because I just loved collaboration anyway. Any excuse to like collaborate with a god brother, senior god brothers, especially. It was like, yeah, what do you need? Like that. That was my natural kind of attitude. So like, so I told the temple leaders, this is what I would really love to do, like, be a pujari and be on the Back to Godhead staff. Is that possible? Can I do that? They weren't like real thrilled about losing, a book distributor, but they agreed, very thankfully. And yeah, so I was always looking for what, like, how can I live from the place of genuine authenticity rather than from a place of either feeling guilt. Oh God, I'm not doing what I should be doing, and I'm not doing it well enough, you know, not going to guilt and not going to hypocrisy either. Oh yes, I'm doing quite well in this, like very, very challenging, service. I was never attracted, growing up in the 60s, like the be natural and be real, kind of like generation. Yeah, I was never attracted to living any other way. And so even if it meant a little bit kind of taking some risks, I just had to like go with my heart and go with what was real for me, like without kind of comparing myself to other people. Okay, so this brings us to what you asked about after 87. So I just continued in that way, and doing what I loved, until 1994. Then in 94, again, as I mentioned, in the previous interview, I came to another crisis point where just within myself, I felt now Srila Sridhar Maharaj has been gone for 6 years because he passed away in 1988. And at the point, you're not going to remember this probably, but in the last interview, I said when I had been in ISKCON, Prabhupada passed away in 77, and I stayed in that mission also for like 7 more years, just to kind of like, I think this can work even without Prabhupada's physical presence. And no, it didn't. You remember that story? And then, okay, so that's when kind of like I shifted over the focus of attention, just kind of naturally blossomed in the direction of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, like that. It was just a natural blossoming, in a very quiet way, not like in an outspoken way or like, being against ISKCON or any of that kind of stuff. And so to say a similar thing, not exactly the same, but a similar thing happened in 94. Guru Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj had been gone for 6 years. at that point. And I just went, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to work anymore without the physical presence of a living awakened master. And at that time, like just again, everything happened from within. I didn't consult with like, like a whole different bunch of people. I just wanted to kind of, because I as I mentioned last time, like there's so much grace comes naturally when just one stays open. Just that kind of like receptivity, openness, receptivity, without having a preconceived idea of, this is the only thing I should do, or these are the things I should never do. And, but just staying, I don't know. I just don't know. That's simple. That kind of like, again, it's kind of like, just know thyself, like the Platonic dictum, on that famous building, know thyself. So I don't know what to do. I just don't know, but I'm feeling helpless and hopeless. Well, what should I do? What should I do? Govinda, Govinda. Hey, Govinda, you know, you know, like that. And so a voice came from within. Go to the public library. And I thought to myself, the regular, mundane public library? Yeah, go. Okay. I went, and then I got there, and now what? And the voice said, the Eastern philosophy section. I went, okay. I went. Now, I gave my word, that I would not mention other spiritual teachers' names in these interviews. And I, as a Sajjan, as a gentleman, I like to keep my word. But the voice within said, just take a look at a few other books with a few other types of teachings and teachers that you never kind of like really never looked at before, never. And it's true. 18 years, I looked at nothing but Gaudiya Vaishnava literature. And it was not like a repression of some kind. It was just like, that's all that was, that's what worked real well for 18 years, exclusively. So I brought some books home and I looked through them, and as it turns out, by divine will and divine guidance, I was guided to just kind of like explore. Again, this is an exploration. It's just because, again, my whole, journey has been one of like trial and error, seeing what works and what does not, what works best, what works not quite as well, maybe what can be added in to help things along, what can be taken out, left out to help things work better, always without a prejudgment or a preconceived prejudice or preference of any kind like that. And so, I discussed, now this is just in my own journey. It's not like intended to be like a broad scale endorsement, for what everybody should do all the time. No, but just what I discovered. It was my own individual, unique discovery. That, like mixing a little bit of the Patanjali yoga system was helpful. Not instead of bhakti. No, that's very, very important. There was no instead of bhakti. There was no instead of Prabhupada and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, etc. It was like, okay, what can help here? This instrument, this expression of the one divinity. What can help here? Not like, like everybody, what is it called? Street corner soapbox kind of thing. And also a little bit of like, More traditional Vedantic teachings, such as found, of course, in the Upanishads, naturally, and the Bhagavad Gita, naturally, and in portions of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It was like, ooh, that was very meaningful to me, because traditionally the Prasthana Trayi, or the three literatures which are considered to be like the gold standard of like timeless universal wisdom transmission, were always considered to be like, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and the Brahma Sutras. Well, like naturally, when I was living in Vrindavan for like 2 out of my 3 years of living in India, I was living in 2 of the 3 years in India that I lived was in Vrindavan, naturally. And so I took a look at that. There was very, very affordable, this books, rare books too, you can get in Delhi, like at these bookshops in Delhi that you couldn't get anywhere else. And so I went, I got a copy of the Brahma Sutras. It's like, all right, I never looked at have seen the Brahma Sutras before. Let's see what this is about. And then I started looking through it, and it was like, my God, this is very complicated. I can't. I'm like a college graduate, and I've been like an editor of like books for like, the last like 10 years. What is it, like 10, something like maybe 20, I don't know, 20 years at that point or something like that. And I can't like understand this at all, like. And so I said, okay, let's just leave this aside for now. Namaste, Brahma Sutras. And I also, when I was living at Rupanuga Bhajan Ashram, I had a chance, they had manuscripts, unpublished manuscripts of like things like Ujjwala Nilamani, is that correct? Ujjwala Nilamani, yeah, and the Gita, not Gita Govinda, Govinda Lilamrita, like very high, like Rasik Shastras like that. And so naturally, being just kind of like innocent and, like I went, okay, I would always like offer pranams to the book before touching those, like just kind of like see what's going on in there. And like, and it's like, again, here, it's just like, it seemed like, okay, this is like I can see why people are like really like, like head over heels about these books. But okay, namaste, like, what's that great verse that your Guru Maharaj quotes from time to time? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote it. Something like, that's it. Raja, something like Godava Bange, Ujjwala Ragapat Godava Bange, something like that.
Pujala Ragabata Gaurava Pange. What's the second line? Hari Jana Vishaya Range.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. So it's like, okay, so those remain above my head. Those shastras, they remain above my head to offer, obeisances, from a distance, respectfully and warmly, affectionately. But it didn't seem like something that I could like really like get absorbed in, like, and like give a lot of attention to. So anyway, so getting back, so I discovered this whole journey over the last, like, close to 50 years now has been one of, like discovery over policy. And I think right. So, yes. So getting back to the Srimad Bhagavatam. So my Prasthana Trayi, or the three gold standards of like go-tos in terms of books that'll kind of help one consistently and powerfully along the entire life's journey, on the spiritual path. It is, to this very day, remains the Bhagavad Gita and the 10 principal Upanishads, not all 108, I haven't studied all 108, but the first, the original, the main 10, plus, of course, a few others, such as naturally the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, naturally. And the third, in my own case, I replaced the Brahma Sutras respectfully with the Srimad Bhagavatam, because within the Srimad Bhagavatam are there's such a power, there are verses within it. It really does have everything that one could ever hope for, in one's spiritual life. And to look, to kind of if there doesn't happen to be a living awakened master present that one can consult with on a pretty regular basis, it's got verses which really kind of resonate, which cause resonance within one's whole system. There are verses, astounding verses, which I was very surprised, because I had studied the entire 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam very, very, very carefully and thoroughly. By the time that the 12th canto was presented by Sri Hridayananda Maharaj back in 1983, I believe that he completed what Srila Prabhupada began. He completed with Gopi Paranadhan Prabhu and some others. They picked up where Prabhupada left off and continued and completed at the end of the 10th canto, then the whole 11th and 12th cantos. And I believe that all of that was available by the end of 1983. I believe I recall that, something like that. And I remember one of my specific sadhanas when I was in ISKCON as a full-time member of ISKCON in the ashram was to read each of the verses 3 times, at the purport once, but verses twice, then purport, then the verse again, 3rd time. So I literally went through the entire 12 cantos 3 times by the time we're finished with 1983. And so nonetheless, I was I couldn't believe my eyes when I started looking through the same, couldn't say that, you see, because our perspective changes dramatically over the course of the decades. So it was the same Srimad Bhagavatam, but not, like that. And so there are verses in there that are shockingly emphasizing the oneness aspect of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva in the same way that the original Upanishads did, like that. It's not contradictory. It was oh my God, because I remember. If I can remember just a couple of verses, I'll be lucky here. But please forgive me. I think one of them goes, Mayeshvarena Jivena Gunena Vina Sarvatmanapi Sarvena Nabhavo Vidyate Kvachit, like that. And that's in something like verse 11, 16, 38 in the Uddhava Gita. So, and of course, as you know, my personal favorite nourishment from the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, is the Uddhava Gita, like that. That's not a surprise. That's not to you, it would not be. So, so this verse, the Sanskrit says, Mayeshvarena Jivena Gunena Gunena Vina. So whatever is being, both the Mayeshvara, I am the Mayeshvarena Jivena, both the Godhead, Ishvara, and Jivena, the living entities, Gunena Gunena Vina, the foundation of the components of nature, as well as their manifestation, like that. So gunena, vina. So apart from or aside from myself, I mean Krishna speaking to Uddhava, aside from myself as the Lord and the living entities and all the qualities of nature and their source, sarvatmanapi sarvena, all that is, sarvatmanapi sarvena, all that could be, that all that is in existence. Nabavo vidyate kvachit. Na means there is nothing else to be found existing anywhere. Kvachit, anywhere, meaning no exceptions. This is like, oh my God. This is like absolute, this is like such a pure, clear transmission from Krishna directly to Uddhava of the oneness aspect of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. So that was like, so after that, I started like finding, just discovering. It was all like a fresh new discovery. Like, because if one is really, I love that what your Guru Maharaj said about never think that you're a finished professor. We are always students. Anytime that somebody thinks they're a finished professor, they really kind of need to go back to school. Remember that he said that? Yeah. So I love that. So many things that your Guru Maharaj said I love. And so, I wrote down a few of the other things also here in case we get to them. But for now, just staying on the point, everything, as long as one remains kind of open, free, clear, we could even use the word empty, because Srila Sridhar Maharaj himself, whenever he would speak about Srila Prabhupada's being able to be like a Shaktivesh avatar and do the work of Nityananda Prabhu in the world, he would like, oh my God, I still remember it. He would look up, like away from the group, and he would go, he became empty. He became empty. Like, so he could, like, he was like an open vessel just for any kind of whatever needed to happen, to be done, to be utilized as whatever instrument to do Krishna's and Radha's work as well, of course, Srimati Radharani's work, and maybe Balaram's too. He was available for that. And so that kind of spaciousness has always been like such, that innocence, that not knowing, what I should be doing or comparing myself to others or even trying to become like others. First of all, I knew it wasn't possible. Sometimes well-meaning, well-intentioned senior godbrothers who became leaders of ISKCON, they would try to become like Srila Prabhupada and kind of imitate some of his mannerisms, or vocal intonations, and, like, yes. But it didn't work, it's such a shame, because like, I got along with all the ones I worked with. I've worked with quite a few of those original leaders, and I got along with them great, Satsvarup Maharaj, Kirtanananda Maharaj, Rameshwar Maharaj, like, etc., Gopal Krishna Maharaj, etc. And so, all of us, have something, special to bring to the table without feeling the need to, like, be a stereotypical carbon copy or a factory assembly line replica of anybody else, whoever that anybody else is. It could be a very wonderful, beautiful, like, special person. But the interesting thing is, it didn't even seem like, it was not even imaginable for a speck of a fraction of a moment that I would, like, become like Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And I don't know a single other person who thought that way. People thought that way about Srila Prabhupada. Oh, I'll become like him. I'll do everything like him. But don't know anybody who thought, yes, I will become like Srila Sridhar Maharaj. It was impossible. Somebody would have been some kind of a lunatic to think that way, you know. Um, Even like in the most in the most well-meaning and well-intentioned, way like that.
Right.
Because like children, sometimes children just want to be like their father, like and put on like his big hat, his big shoes, his big coat. But it doesn't work out exactly that way. So so it was wonderful to just keep noticing, what's wow. So at a certain point, from the Bhagavatam, so I found in my own case, again, it's just my personal story. It's not like the template for anybody else to follow. But in my own case, I just happened to notice, and with honesty, um, there were like certain things that I was never going to be able to kind of become a carbon copy of, or a stereotype of, within our lineage of, beloved masters. And there were even like a handful of things that you could count on like one hand or less that I didn't really resonate with, I didn't really agree with. But rather than feeling guilty about that, or feeling like some kind of offender about that, I thought to myself, so what? So what if I don't agree with like everything that all of our previous acharyas have said? Big deal. You know, when you're in love, who cares? I mean, do we actually agree with everything that our parents said or did, or our grandparents, or our family, other family members, or friends, and our peers? No, of course not. But we didn't stop loving them. We didn't lose our love for them. It was like, yeah, it was like kind of like almost like a charming, amusing thing, rather than like, oh, that's a deal breaker. I'm not like going to be part of this family anymore. No, 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 nothing like that. Nothing, because so ultimately I discovered, that it's not merely a cliche that like, all you need is love. It's actually true, because with love, it opens for greater understanding. It opens the door to greater understanding. So even if like a religious leader, or like a previous spiritual teacher or whatever, like says or does something that it's kind of like a little bit feels a little bit of abrasive or abusive, or any of that, it's like, okay, yeah, that's okay, it's okay. you know and especially here's where innocence comes in, because when we were kids, sometimes we get into like physical fist fights with other kids. And then like the same day, just later the same day, it didn't even matter anymore. It was totally forgotten. It was, I mean, like, hopefully in most cases, it didn't always work out that way, but it was possible. See, whatever we're talking about, it's all about potentiality, potential, possibility, opportunity. Like what really, really brings aliveness into this body, mind, heart instrument in such a way that it can, kind of like be on its A game and offer the most it possibly can, to the whole global community, a benign presence, like without any preconceived desires or expectations, or kind of like self-punishments, or like kind of like self-limiting habit patterns like that.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. I like that idea. Unfortunately, we're almost out of time.
Oh,
But
I'm kidding. I'm just joking.
there's a lot of a lot of good stuff came out, and I wanted to open up questions. If Prachchandra has any questions, please do ask them to Sajjan. Seems like she's dumbfounded.
No, thank you. I will have to listen to it again.
Okay, very good. So I guess well, let me ask one quick question. We have a couple of minutes here.
We can make this a trilogy, you know. We can do another one.
Let's see. I guess last thing I wanted to ask you, you were like you could say you're an elder, you're in your 70s, right?
Oh yeah, 70, just 70.
Okay. So
last October.
Nice. So you've seen a lot, you've been around for a long time. So what, just shortly, in a short way, what would you say is the most important thing that you kind of pass on to the younger generation of spiritual seekers and devotees?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking that. That's a beautiful question. And you know, just in the short amount of time that we have here, I guess the most important thing is just to always, you know, like to just kind of stay in touch with what's really true for us in our own body, mind, heart systems, you know, like at all times, not just certain times of the day, like when we're in the temple or, you know, like whatever. But I found that to really be such a useful practice throughout all of life, you know. And again, there's so much. It's impossible to get through, you know, to talk about everything. But I think it's so valuable to boil the milk now. Other sayings that Srila Tripurari Maharaj have said were, you know, like boil the milk now, do relief work, you know, like that. And sometimes when devotees would ask a certain kind of technical questions, you know, I love something he said on a couple of occasions. He said, so, and he explained, he answered the question beautifully. And he said, I hope that helps. And then he said, there's no need to get neurotic about it. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he said.
Yeah, see, but that's that's meaningful. All the little stuff, all the little things. There is so many. It's Srila Prabhupada once said, even one single word of absolute truth is enough to transform one's whole being from the inside out and transform one's whole life. And I have discovered that to be true. You know, and Srila Prabhupada continuously kept saying, practically on every other page of all of his books, you know, like, remember, you are not the body, aham brahmasmi, pure spirit. And so sometimes just, I mean, like, you know, as much as we see like najayate mriyate va kadachin, you are, you know, like this pure spirit is unborn, najayate, namrite, and is undying, you know, like that. That's easy to kind of go, oh yeah, I know that. But if one really sits with that and really reflects deeply, during those 2 years living in Vrindavan, don't tell anybody this, I'm joking. I actually studied and kind of reflected upon or contemplated what I studied in the books for about 12 hours a day. You know, there was really, that's what I felt was the best use of one's time in Vrindavan. To really kind of absorb what the great awakened masters have been saying for thousands of years. You know, like, is it, you know, I'm not willing to just go, oh yeah, I read that, I know that. I'm not willing to do that, you know. So I am unborn. Wow. Krishna says in verse 10-20, I want to say, in Bhagavad Gita, Ahamatma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutantarashaya Ahamadish Chamadyam Cha Bhutanam Anta Evacha. I am the self in all beings, beginning, middle, and end. And of course, like so many others that there's not time to quote now, but that's just that. I mean, the whole, God, it's impossible to delineate. It's exactly as the great masters, our previous acharyas have said. There's, even if we had like as many mouths as Ananta Shesha, we could not delineate enough the glories of the absolute reality. And so, just to conclude, I think that the best advice that I could offer is to focus on what is the timeless, universal transmission of truth that is consistently found not only in the Prasthana Trayi, but throughout all genuine, authentic spiritual literatures right up until the contemporary time, right in here, right now. What is that core truth? Because I think that if we embrace each of those four words of it, so I found that to be Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva within the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava canon, whole Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition and lineage. This Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva is like, one could just spend a lifetime just with those four words, just contemplating and reflecting deeply, really penetratingly on those four words. Achintya, inconceivable, means like there's no way that the materially conditioned mind or the socio-culturally conditioned intellect can actually understand or figure out how the absolute reality can be absolutely one, non-dual, and expressing in an unlimited, infinite variety of forms and expressions and manifestations, especially of creativity and love and beauty like that, and harmony. And so Achintya, if we just really, really kind of take in, just like really breathe it in, as they say, take in, it's Achintya, it's the Adhoksaja plane, as Srila Sridhar Maharaj used to say, the transcendent realm, where you cannot figure it out, impossible.
So would you say, in a nutshell, it's like go deeper into like, for the younger devotees to actually like contemplate on these things instead of just doing them mechanically or something like that?
Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly. Thank you.
Nice.
Exactly. And each of the other words the same. Achintya. So we talked, I gave examples of verses of the Abheda, the pure oneness, but also the Bheda. Are we actually, does the Gaudiya Vaishnava community actually honor individual, unique expression of the one? Or do we kind of like look at each other? I'm not saying you do this or anybody in Tripurari Maharaj's community does this, but in, like, again, my observation over the decades in all different communities, spiritual communities, are we actually honoring unique individual expression of the one without judging it or criticizing it or comparing to other people or things, or like what came before? Because again, if we're only going on what came before without something alive here and now, it's a little something, poetically speaking, it's a little something like living in the graveyard, which is like a left-handed practice of the tantrics, which they try to do to kind of overcome, their attraction to the material world, but it's really, there's what really brings the anything ancient scriptures or ancient teachings to life and makes them vibrant, here and now and throughout all of life is, is continuously, like checking in to see, am I honoring the diversity, the variety along with the oneness without any preconceived prejudices or preferences. And finally, tattva, just to conclude with that, achintya, beda beda, tattva. Are we considering, like that, oh, this is the best philosophy in the marketplace, and my tribe, has a monopoly on that? Are we thinking that way? It could be very subtle. It could be very subconscious. But sometimes I've noticed, again, it's just an observation, not a criticism. Over the decades, there's a tendency to view what is the timeless universal truth to be the best philosophy in the marketplace that our family, our tribe has a monopoly on. It's not that. Because again, this is the perfect place to conclude. The same achintya beda beda tattva is found all the way on the opposite end of the spectrum in the second verse of the Heart Sutra of Buddhism. It says that form and emptiness are non-different. That's me. That's like big. That's huge. That's achintya beda beda tattva, but in a whole other different language, like that. And of course, like it doesn't allow a full expansion of all the things that Gaudiya Vaishnava does, but nonetheless, just the fact that seed principle of simultaneous oneness with difference, is found all the way at the other end of the spectrum. To me, that's like wow. That's a wow that can really last us for like the rest of the week, poetically speaking, like that.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Sajjana. It's been very interesting. And we will guess we'll conclude here. And then if anybody has a question or something, they can post it on the YouTube comment, and then people can, have a conversation with you there if they would like to.
Thank you for reminding me about that. If anybody likes, this is just an invitation. It's just an offering. If anybody would like to contact me, communicate with me, etc., to speak further about, devotional life, they're welcome to do so, and you're welcome to give them my Gmail address that you have, and they can contact me in that way, and I'd be happy to, have new friends in that way.
Good. Yeah, so contact me if you like to connect with Sajjana, and we thank you very much for the second part as well as the first one. Thanks for spending your time with us, and I'll see you on the Sunday call.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity, Prabhu. I deeply appreciate this opportunity to, again, just connect a little more with all the beloved friends.